Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I'd like to talk to you about happiness. Happiness is a very popular term. The pursuit of happiness is, of course, one of the founding principles of this great country. We say things like, we just want to be happy, or perhaps, we just want our kids to be happy, right? We just want our kids to be happy. Well, maybe as opposed to getting them into the right college or career, but it strikes me as kind of funny that we use the word just in that phrase. If you really stop to think about it, oftentimes getting into the right college or career might actually be a lot easier than finding true and lasting happiness. How many adults do you know that would describe themselves as truly happy? Well, that answer certainly depends on how we're actually defining happiness. That definition is very important, though. Many times, what we're actually describing as happiness is that big rush of positive emotion, the kind of joy that just puts a wide smile right across our faces. And those moments of joy are wonderful. But sometimes we do ourselves a disservice if we measure our lives by how often we are happy, at least in that sense of the word. The reality is that for most of us, life can be a struggle. To judge our success by how often we're having blissful joy can have a real downside. It can really lead us into some negative feelings about ourselves and how our lives are going if we don't see our life continually filled with that type of strong, joyful emotion. So I'm all for happiness and joy. And if you can find what brings you happiness, add more of it into your life. That's great. However, keep in mind that most of our lives are just not going to be continually filled with those kinds of moments. But I'd like you to see that that's not a cause for any despair or disappointment. The media and Hollywood, though, do not make it easy for us to remember that. We're constantly bombarded with images and advertisements telling us that we'll be happy if fill in the blank with whatever product or activity you can think of. But don't kid yourself. We're all impacted at least to a degree by this culture. However, we don't have to be defined or limited by it. So again, joy and happiness are great, but I'd encourage you to consider measuring your life more in terms of peace than blissful happiness. Consider how content and peaceful you are. Perhaps take some time today to think about what it means for you to be at peace, what it feels like to be at peace and content. See if you can create some peace for yourself today. I'd suggest that if you can be at peace and really be content, then by definition, you're already getting what you need. You might not even need that joy that you might have been looking for before. You're already content, and in many in life situations, peace is simply more available to us than blissful happiness. Peace can be much more about what's happening to us internally rather than what's happening to us externally. So think about the value you're placing on happiness and joy versus peace and contentment, considering how you're measuring success in your life. By those typically short-term moments of blissful happiness, or by your peace and contentment. As always, I'd love for you to discuss this with someone you're close to. Leave a comment and let's talk.